It's the final countdown for the San Francisco 49ers roster. We're going from 90 to 53. We've already seen the San Francisco 49ers make 5 moves. Unfortunately for those guys, I didn't have them making the final 53, so we can still take our last shot at predicting the 49ers final 53 man roster. I think I did this exercise last week, and there have been some minor changes. As we know, there's really only a handful of spots that you have about 30 plus guys competing for, and there has been a couple shifts due to new information and a new kind of we saw what happened in that preseason game against the Las Vegas Raiders. I almost called them Oakland. Um, so I've kind of adjusted my final 53 man roster, but we will go through. I'll give you guys an opportunity to make your guesses, and we will talk. We could get some roster moves live on the show as we continue to break it all down. But you guys already know what to do. Drop an SDS in the chat, smash that like button, and let's talk final 53 man roster predictions. Let's go. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What is going down, sourdough squad? All right, as you guys have already seen, the San Francisco 49ers have made some moves, but this doesn't actually play much of a role into our final 53-man roster projection. But let's take a look before we get this thing going. So as we can see, the San Francisco 49ers did release Matt Breida, and I did not have Matt Breida making the final 53. He could be a potential practice squad guy. So this I'm not surprised by. I actually saw a lot of fans were upset about this and wanted Breida to make the roster. I just don't think, based on the 49ers current situation, that you can do that. So he seems like a guy who could definitely be a practice squad candidate, but I didn't anticipate Breida was going to make the final. Jonte Kirkland, he was also released today. No surprise here. I didn't have him making the final practice squad, or I didn't have him making the final roster. He could be a practice squad candidate. However, we got some punter news. The San Francisco 49ers released Keyshawn Vaughn, another running back that they had added during camp to be a camp body. And then they have waived punter Presley Harvin and offensive line Lewis Kidd. Now, Presley Harvin actually played pretty well, honestly. If, all things considered, if you were to say, Presley Harvin's your starting punter heading into the season, I'm fine with that. I really don't have too many issues with that. But, of course, we know our guy is Mitch Wishnowsky. So, but that's how well he played. I thought he punted exceptionally well for the San Francisco 49ers during his time with Mitch Wishnowsky being hurt. But he wasn't able to maintain, and honestly, that was to be expected. So really, no questions and again concerns with any of this. And again, we still have time to really kind of build out this final roster, because based on how it's currently looking, there's still some time to tweak a little bit of what we were working on. Want to shout out two new sponsors for the channel. Shout out to Autograph, phenomenal app. Make sure you go download that. Use the code SF9ers. Also, shout out to my bookie for sponsoring the channel as well. We also are having a couple more sponsors that I will be announcing shortly as well. So we are getting ready for the upcoming season, just as you are too. So let's talk about final 53 man roster. All right. So we obviously understand Mitch Wishnowsky, Tabor Pepper, Jake Moody have made the roster. So they count for 3. So there's 3 guys already taken for. I want to ask you guys this question. I was actually thinking about this the other day. What if specialists didn't count against the roster? Like, what if you remained having a 53-man roster, except you had 3 slots available for specialists that don't account against the final roster? So basically, you would have, because every team needs a kicker, a punter, and a long snapper, but there's such specialized roles. What if they just didn't count towards the roster at all and they just had their own little special designation? You have 3 slots, one for punter, kicker, and long snapper, and then you still build out your 53-man roster. I was like, that actually seems like a phenomenal idea, because I'm constantly, when I do these 53-man roster projections, I'm always like, wow, it would be great to have 2 more spots. It would be great to have 3 more roster spots to be able to keep certain guys on your roster, back end guys who need development. You keep them on your roster and you keep working with them rather than just cutting them free and potentially losing them via waivers or to another team. I'm just like, well, why don't we just make specialists exempt from the roster? Every team needs a kicker. Every team needs a punter. Every team needs a long snapper. Just don't count them against the roster. Just have them in their own designation, build out the rest. That was just a thought that I had the other day, but who knows? That will probably never happen. But let's get into this. Let's start with the defense again and work our way up to the offense. I don't think any of my numbers have changed in regards to how many I think they'll keep. I think what changes were just a couple players here or there. So let's start with the defense. I still have the 49ers keeping 4. Now, we are in a bit of a TBD situation with Talanoa Hufanga. So we don't know if he's going to start the year on PUP, IR, or either one of those things that would allow him not to count against the roster. We were told by Kyle Shanahan that this Wednesday is when they will need to make the final designation. Obviously, the way the 49ers move through this roster and cut guys will also let us know potentially what their plan is for Hufanga through kind of a reverse engineer. But I'm going to continue to build out this roster as Hufanga will be ready to go week 1 against the Jets. So I have Jair Brown, Talanoa Hufanga, George Odom, and Malik Mustafa. Those are my 4 safeties. I think it's pretty simple. Obviously, if you run into a situation where Hufanga is on the physically unable to perform list, then maybe you bring up Tracy Walker in that particular instance. But I'm riding with the 4. I'm building this out assuming Talanoa Hufanga will be available for the 49ers. So 4 for safeties, nothing changes. With 6, I had a TBD with the final spot heading into the game against the Raiders. It was between Rock Sin and Samuel Womack. My prediction that I did last week, I had Rock Sin winning that. And after watching the 49ers preseason finale against the Raiders, I still feel that way. So I do think that what we will see for the cornerbacks is they will keep 6, and it will be Charvarius Ward, Diamador Lenore, Isaac Yadam, Bernardo Green, Darrell Luter Jr., and Rock Sin. I think Womack had ups and downs in that game against the Raiders, but I think with what we've seen from Rock Sin, he's been a little bit more consistent. And I think the 49ers are looking for more consistency right now with this final roster, more so than upside. So because of that, I'm sticking with Rock Sin at cornerback. With linebackers, not much has changed here for me either. I still have the 49ers keeping 5 with Dre Greenlaw starting on PUP. I have Warner, Devondre Campbell, D. Winters, Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. And I think where this can be up for debate is for this 5th linebacker spot. I know a lot of people are ready to cut ties with DFF. I just know personally how he's viewed within that locker room. And again, you even saw, I think he was starting linebacker against the Raiders. He had a forced fumble. So I don't think DFF is going anywhere. I think there's a level of trust that they have with him and also what he contributes on special teams. So I don't think DFF is going anywhere. But I think you can make a case with Jalen Graham, Curtis Robinson, and Tatum Bethune. Out of those 3 guys, it could very well be Curtis Robinson. I just have a hard time moving on from the upside of Jalen Graham. So I think my 5 stay the same. I've seen a lot of people put Curtis Robinson into their final linebacker room, and that very well could be the case. But I think I got to keep Jalen Graham. And then the goal would be is to get Robinson and Bethune to the practice squad. That would be ideal. So, and we do know D Winters. We're still trying to figure out the severity of the ankle injury to D Winters that he suffered against the Raiders. I don't know if that opens up the door potentially for him to start on PUP. I hope that's not the case. I've been looking. I haven't really seen any updates on D Winters today. So that'll be an interesting element, but I still think I'm rocking with the same 5. Warner, Campbell, Winters, DFF, and Jalen Graham. I think Bethune you can get back on the practice squad. And I honestly do think you could get Curtis Robinson back on the practice squad as well. So it's not like they're going far. I just don't have them making the final 53. Now, for the defensive line, this is where I've kind of made an adjustment. So for the interior defensive tackles, I had 5. I had Hargrave, Collins, Givens, Elliott, and McGill. Even as I'm looking at this, I think I've moved off McGill, and so I'm shifting a little bit because obviously we saw some injuries to the defensive end before the Raiders game. I had the 49ers keeping Bosa, Floyd, YGM, and Beal. Those remain Floyd is day to day. Yetur is week to week. So based on that alone, I had to adjust. So I had to shift from T.Y. McGill to Alex Barrett. So that's one of the shifts that I have. So now I have 4 interior defensive tackles, which I don't think is ideal. And then I'm shifting to, I guess, 5 defensive end. Barrett is a hybrid. So that's why I'm shifting to Alex Barrett, because he can play edge in a pinch. He's more of an interior, 0 to 3 tech kind of guy, but he can play on the outside in a pinch. So because of that versatility, I have to. Oh, snap. We got a trade. Oh, boy. Adam Schefter. We got a quarterback trade. The Titans are sending quarterback Malik Willis to the Packers in exchange for a 2025 7th round pick. Wow. Okay. Malik Willis, I believe, was a former 2nd round draft pick out of Liberty. And he just got moved for a future 7th round draft pick to go back up Jordan Love. Oh boy. So now obviously one of the interesting elements of like this conversation that we're talking about is, are the 49ers going to be making any trades like this? Are there any guys that they could get a Randy Gregory potentially onto the squad like last year? I think right where we are talking about defensive end and defensive line depth, that could be the spot that the 49ers could make calls on to see like, hey, are you running into a numbers game? We have a situation where we need some more depth. So let's make a deal, late round pick swaps, things like that. So I think this position group that we're actually talking about right now could be a situation where the 49ers are looking to add additional depth via trade or via waivers. So, but this is where I had a a huge adjustment going from keeping T.Y. McGill to now I'm keeping Alex Barrett. I would say Evan Anderson, though, is also someone to consider. I think if I were to stay with 5 defensive tackles, I might actually adjust and go Evan Anderson over T.Y. McGill, just because I like the youth that Anderson brings, and I think he could be a solid player. And also, too, 49ers gave him some decent guaranteed money when he signed as an undrafted free agent. So Evan Anderson could be a guy that could sneak onto this roster on the back end of this kind of questionable depth for the defensive line. So that my numbers remain the same on the defense. I have the 49ers keeping 24 defenders, and that leaves 26 available for the offense. So with the offense, let's start with the offensive line, and then we'll work our way up to the quarterbacks. So obviously, we're assuming Trent Williams is on this roster. It's day 4087. Trent Williams is still nowhere to be found in the 49ers facility, but I'm operating as Trent will be a part of this team moving forward. So Trent Williams, you have Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, Colton McKivitz. That right now is your starting offensive line. So there's 5. I still have the 49ers keeping 9. Jalen Moore as your swing left tackle. You have Burford. Burford returned to practice today. You have Nick Sakel. And then you are going to put Jonathan Feliciano on injured reserve to start the season. And that really leaves you with one more spot. And this is where it's going to be very interesting to see what the 49ers do if they keep 9 and with this last spot. Do they keep Chris Hubbard, who is a veteran who we've seen them in the past keep a left swing tackle and a right swing tackle? So Hubbard would be a right swing tackle. Or do they keep Jarrett Kingston? I think this is where that conversation happens. Based on the numbers, I can't squeeze any more offensive line into here. I have them keeping 9. I can't see them keeping many more. They could keep 10, but man, there's too many other spots that they need they need players for. So I have them keeping 9. And I think the question becomes, do they keep Hubbard or do they keep Kingston? Obviously, Kingston, the 6th round draft pick at a USC, has played both tackle and guard with the 49ers throughout training camp and preseason. Do they feel comfortable enough of him having to fill in at right tackle in a pinch? Do they maybe see Burford as an emergency right tackle potentially? Could that sway them away from keeping Hubbard and then keep Kingston? I really think that's where the conversation is going to be had of who to keep. I don't think Ben Bartch has done enough to make it. I think Nugent shows a lot of promise and upside. I think he's a guy you want to bring back around to your practice squad. And then Kingston, I think, is the one where you have to have a conversation about, because he has played pretty well. Both Nugent and Kingston have played pretty well. But again, there's just not enough spots right now on the 49ers offensive line. So they got to make a tough decision on who they think can come back to the practice squad. I would assume a guy that they drafted in the 6th round has a potential to get picked up. But we shall see. So I still have them keeping 9, and I have them keeping Burford. So this one's been interesting because I've been seeing the kind of hype of Cameron Latu. I've seen a couple reports come out talking about how Cameron Latu is quietly coming along strong at training camp. That could actually mean multiple things. Those reports could be to potentially aid any potential trade conversations. We talked about this, right? We've talked about, Willis is not Willis. Latu is a prime trade candidate because he was a 3rd round draft pick. He's out of Alabama. He's still young. He shows glimpses of being a good player, but I don't think Kyle Shanahan trusts him. And I think that is huge for Kyle to keep someone on the roster. And I just don't get the sense that Latu has earned that trust. But the problem with Latu is if you cut him, there's a good chance he gets picked up. So that's why I'm kind of thinking, is this influx of positive reports rooted in real evaluation, or could it be rooted in trying to drum up, positive reinforcements of a player that they are potentially shopping? So that's kind of where I'm at. I still don't think Latu makes the roster. Obviously, the 49ers signed Logan Thomas, which is interesting. But I have the 49ers keeping 3 tight ends currently. I have them with 3. Um, Kittle, Sauber, Willis. I think those guys have earned those spots. Tonjes is a intriguing one. I think he's actually uh shown something. Um I don't disagree that there's been flashes. He's definitely shown flashes. But again, it comes down to trust. And I don't think the 49ers trust him yet. And when these roster spots are so valuable, what do you do? What do you do? I think Logan Thomas is a practice squad candidate. Um, he was a free agent before he signed with the 49ers. When they let him go, he remained a free agent. I don't think anyone's going to be picking up Logan Thomas. So I would try to be getting Logan Thomas back on waivers, or excuse me, back onto the practice squad. I think from what we've heard, they like him. So I don't know. I think this is one of the more fascinating positions. I'm curious to know how many tight ends you guys think the 49ers will keep. Will they keep 3? Will they keep 4? Let me know what you're thinking in the chat. And if it is 3, or I'll say if it is 4, 3 or 4, whatever you're thinking, who are they keeping out of that group? Because I'm not sure. I'm not sure they keep more than 3, just based on the overall kind of structure of the roster right now. But we shall see. We shall see. The Latu one is a very intriguing situation. What is this? So I don't know if KJ's being funny or if he's being serious. I hate to say that I think, some people make this joke because Cameron Latu used to play. He's a converted defensive end to tight end. I would think about it. Honestly, I would see. I'd run him through a couple defensive line drills at practice. I'd be like, let's just try this out. Let's see what happens. We're light on defensive end depth. You're a powerful guy. Latu, I think, has good power. He doesn't have the speed. I would say to be like a speed rusher, but he could be a big end in a wide 9 scheme. Obviously, he's a little lighter. I'm not joking. Like, I would try it. I would just see. I would see if there's anything that popped, if anything that he showed, by putting his hand in the dirt and potentially showing something as a defensive end. That's just where I'm at with Latu. Like, if you're going to give him a roster spot, you got to find a way to get him on the field. So if that's a way to get him on the field, and even if he could be a dual tight end, D end kind of, I would think about it. It would cross my mind. It would be like, obviously dependent on the conversations that are having internally. And if the conversations internally were like, yeah, I don't know about Latu at tight end, I'll be like, all right, well, before we get rid of him, let's see. Let's just see. Can he Does he look like a guy who could potentially fill a depth piece? I don't know. That might be a little too galaxy brain. But it would be something that it would cross my mind for sure, because obviously I don't want to burn that. I don't want to burn that pick that you used to get him. So I'd be trying to use Latu in any way I could. So that would be interesting. And again, it's rooted in the fact that he's done it before. So it's not like we're being, we're not joking about it. Like I'd be like, I would like to see, you know, that would be interesting. But I still have them keeping 3 wide receivers. That hasn't changed for me. I have the 49ers keeping 6. Brandon Aiyuk, assuming, uh, obviously CeeDee Lamb got paid today. He signed the biggest signing bonus out of any wide receiver in NFL history, beating Justin Jefferson. $34 million per year on average, $100 million guaranteed. I didn't see total guarantees, but CeeDee Lamb got paid. I'm just really, really intrigued by the fact, like, did that have an impact on Brandon Aiyuk? My take on the CeeDee Lamb deal is, of course, anytime a wide receiver gets paid like that, it adjusts the market. It creates a shift in the market. Now, obviously, with Brandon Aiyuk, he was never going to get. I don't think he was going to get Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb money. Obviously, he can get in that range, and it sounds like he would have gotten in that range if he was to accept the deal from the Patriots, $32.5 million. Very, very high guarantees. And obviously, he didn't accept that. Now he's back at the table with the 49ers, where, man, like, they apparently have agreed to the first 3 years, everything else, and what it's been reported as is they are essentially going back and forth over a cosmetic issue on the contract. And does CD getting paid recontextualize that potential? I don't know. Does that recontextualize the potential hangup? Does it make them come back together and be like, all right, well, now all things considered, yeah, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it makes more sense now that CeeDee Lamb's paid to make that minor adjustment. Interesting situation. But we'll see. But I still have the 49ers keeping 6. Brandon Aiyuk, Debo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, Chris Conley, Cowing, and Pierce Saul. I just think, again, it's a big time numbers game, and I think they can only keep 6 wide receivers at this time. Obviously, I talked about it. I think Bell had a decent training camp. Preseason, not so much. He had a really nice return against the Raiders, but he did have that one play where he was like running up the seam and like lost the ball. Looked like it could have been a catch, but I don't know what happened on that particular play. So I don't know if Bell had done enough. So I think the 49ers remain with 6 wide receivers. And then as we get to the running backs, I got 5: Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, Isaac Guerrero with Kyle Juszczyk. I think Cody Schrader was the guy who was kind of competing for a potential spot, but I do think Isaac Guerrero, who wasn't going to lose his spot, proved why he is going to have a spot against the Raiders. So the 49ers running back room looks pretty solid right now. The only thing that you could potentially see happening is dependent on how much they like Cody Schrader. If they don't believe Cody Schrader is going to make it back to the practice squad, they could potentially, I don't know. Do you think they would shop Mitchell in exchange to keep Cody Schrader on the squad? Again, Mitchell's issue isn't talent. Mitchell's issue is availability. And again, it popped up this year. I've always felt that Jordan Mason is a great talent. But we talked about it. Elijah Mitchell's a quality talent as well. But I said the only path for Jordan Mason to overtake Mitchell is if Mitchell gets hurt. And that's exactly what happened. Mitchell got hurt in training camp. Jordan Mason completely swooped running back 2, in my opinion. And I don't see how you can give it to Mitchell. I don't see how you can rely on Mitchell. I like Elijah Mitchell. I do. That's the thing that sucks about this situation with him is I think he's a talented running back. I think he's very good. I think he's a quality player. But the problem that he suffers with is availability. And it has yet again popped up in training camp. It's just tough, man. It's tough because he's been a great asset as a former 6th-round draft pick. He's been great when he's available. But again, availability is the thing. So he would probably be the most valuable asset right now, not named Jordan Mason, because I think Jordan Mason has too much hype on him that I don't think what he's worth you would actually get in return in regards to value. So I think you've got to keep Mason. He's such a different back than Christian McCaffrey. He's really the thunder to Christian McCaffrey's lightning. They complement each other so well because CMC does it all. He's just a supremely twitchy, talented back. Mason, phenomenal vision, and he is a hard-nosed physical runner. Man, it's hard not to like Jordan Mason. And then Isaac Guerrero gives you a little bit of that Raheem Mostert. I'm excited to see what this. Now, this is dependent on Kyle Shanahan allowing someone other than Christian McCaffrey to run the football. Now, we get it. Christian McCaffrey, a dog. Christian McCaffrey, best running back in the NFL. Offensive play. Yes, we want the ball in Christian McCaffrey's hands. We do. But you know what else we want? We also want fresh legs for Christian McCaffrey. So it would be phenomenal to be able to get a little bit more of a rotation with CMC. Not because we think CMC doesn't need the ball in his hands. Yes, we want Christian McCaffrey to have the ball in his hands as many times as we can. But we also understand this is if the San Francisco 49ers intention is to play for a Super Bowl, then you have to think about the postseason and you have to think about keeping guys like Christian McCaffrey as fresh as possible so that when the playoffs come around, hell yeah, give him 30 carries, give him 40 touches. Like, that's fine. Do that in the playoffs. Throughout the regular season, if you can get into a rhythm of being able to balance Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, Isaac Guerrero, Elijah Mitchell, if he's healthy, if you get into a balance of being able to kind of work these guys into a system that allows all of them to stay as fresh as possible, then that's even a better situation for the whole offense. So it's going to be fascinating to see. I do anticipate they will keep Elijah Mitchell. Um, I don't think he'll get moved, especially because I think he is hurt right now. Um, but but uh, it'll be interesting to see. So I still got them keeping 5: CMC, Mitchell, Mason, Guerrero, Juice, and Schrader to the practice squad. And then I have them keeping 3 quarterbacks: Brock Purdy, Josh Dobbs, Brandon Allen. So honestly, a whole lot didn't change from last week's 53-man projection. The biggest change, the only change that I'm realizing came on the defensive line, and that was going from McGill to Barrett. Other than that, I think I remained I remained solid with the rest of the 53. Nothing in the final preseason game necessarily swayed me to make any changes. So I pretty much kept it. And let me run it through for those of you who haven't been here the whole time. So this is my final 53-man roster. I have 3 quarterbacks: Brock Purdy, Josh Dobbs, Brandon Allen, Tanner Mordecai to the practice squad. I like Tanner Mordecai. I do. I've come around to Tanner Mordecai. I think he would be a great practice squad addition. I'm not sure he would get poached. I think he would be able to flip around to the practice squad. But not bad. I have 5 running backs: CMC, Mitchell, Mason, Guerrero, Juice. 6 wide receivers: Aiyuk, Debo, Jawan, Conley, Cowing, Pearsall. 3 tight ends: Kittle, Sauber, Willis. 9 offensive linemen: Trent, Banks, Brendel, Pooney, McKivitz, Moore, Zakel, Burford, and Hubbard. Bosa, I have them keeping 5 defensive ends. I'm calling Barrett a defensive end. I have Bosa, Floyd, YGM, Beal, Alex Barrett. I have 4 defensive tackles in Hargrave, Collins, Givens, and Elliott. Excuse me. 5 linebackers: Warner, Campbell, Winters, DFF, and Jalen Graham. 6 cornerbacks: Ward, Lenore, Yadam, Green, Luter, Rock, Yasin. 4 safeties: Brown, Hufunga, Odom, Mustafa, and then 3 specialists: Moody, Mitch, and Tabor. So really, all that really changed was a defensive line designation. I went from interior defensive tackle to being able to keep more DN depth, I guess, going with a guy who's a little bit more versatile, can play inside out. But yeah, actually not all that much changed from my final 53. Chris says, "Hey Brad, just a heads up that the Steelers site is reporting the Steelers, quote, feel good about getting Aiyuk by tomorrow. Have I heard anything on this?" I have not heard anything on Aiyuk to the Steelers. My honest opinion on that is that it is dead. Um, I really don't feel like that is a viable trade destination because anything that involves just draft picks is an instant loss for the 49ers. Just an instant loss. So if if the if the offer from the Steelers is a second and a fifth round pick or a second and a fourth round pick, no, that is to me a non-starter. But the thing is, if that's a starter for the 49ers, I have more questions with the 49ers than anything else. I feel like if you trade, even regardless of how upset you are with this situation, how annoyed you are with this situation, even if you're like, yeah, get Aiyuk out of here, I'm tired, ship him off. Even if that is your mentality, if you're getting a second and a fifth round draft pick, that should still piss you off. Like, that should still make you angry that the 49ers just agreed to getting worse as a team voluntarily and uh, trading one of your best assets for chump change. This is what I'm going to call it. I'm calling a second and a fifth, a second and a fourth, literal chump change. Um, that if that's what you're getting for Aiyuk, that's a, a catastrophic failure in a season that you need Brandon Aiyuk. I would say Brandon Aiyuk has earned more money by not playing because you can see, like, yeah, I think the 49ers need Brandon Aiyuk. They need that separator. They need that guy on the outside who can strike fear into defenses' hearts. Um, and I don't feel that a second and a mid-round draft pick is going to do it. It might do it for the 49ers to get out of this headache, but I would be shocked to see the 49ers take a bath in regards to value, in my opinion, um, to just get rid of this headache. They've literally been uh, dealing with this for long enough that it's like it just can't be picks. It just can't. It just can't. It just can't. It can't be picks. If it was picks, I would be so disappointed in this franchise. Uh, if that's what it is, I'll be disappointed if they trade Brandon Ayuk in any instance. To be honest, uh, but obviously, I'm going to try to look at this as objectively as possible. And for me to not be as disappointed in a potential Brandon Ayuk trade is you have to get a quality player in return who's going to help you this season. That is literally the only scenario where you can feel okay about the fact that the 49ers just traded away an all-pro player in a season where they're saying it's Super Bowl or bust. Um, I would be very disappointed if they only got picks back. Again, I'm disappointed. I would be disappointed in almost any instance, but if you could get a player who presents um, of value, who can contribute in year one, we're having a little bit different of a conversation. But yeah, I don't believe I haven't heard anything on the front of the Steelers since that report came out 12 days ago. Remember when the 49ers and the Steelers agreed to a trade in principle that also Brandon Aiyuk accepted the contract in principle, meaning the only thing left is for the 49ers to sign on the dotted line? You remember that bizarre report? That was 12 days ago. If the 49ers were going to trade Brandon Aiyuk to the Steelers, they would have done it already. That's my belief. I do not believe the Steelers are an option at this point. We've heard from Steelers insiders that the Steelers have been adamant about not adding a player in return for Brandon Aiyuk. So I'm adamant that if that is the truth, that there is no deal that is to be accepted. That to me is only a scare tactic put out by someone to try to create pressure on the situation, because that's why it was weird to begin with that a trade in principle had been agreed to by all three parties. And it's now 12 days later and still nothing has occurred. So I think all the Steelers stuff is BS until it happens. It's BS to me until it happens. And then if the 49ers actually do it, then we're having a different conversation beyond that. But to me, the Steelers stuff is BS. It's felt like BS ever since the compensation was revealed. And yeah, it's 12 days ago in this particular news cycle, might as well be 3 months ago. So yeah, that would be my take on it, is that the whole Steelers thing is just smoke to try to generate public pressure and manipulate public perception. That's my read on it. Thankfully, I have a tinfoil hat that I keep on me at all times. So I'm not affected by those things. I look at them inherently as that, and I feel I've been proven right in this situation. So for me, the Steelers thing is bogus until it happens. Until then, I believe it's completely factual. It's made up. It's a lie. It's fabricated. Chris, just so you know, none of anything I'm saying is directed at you. You have been one of my favorite Steeler fans throughout this whole thing. You are welcome here whenever you want. Just know, if you sense a bit of a frustrated tone in my voice, it's not directed at you, Chris. It's directed at the global situation. It's directed at the most ridiculous contract negotiation probably that has ever existed. So you're the man, Chris. Appreciate you, man. Again, like I said, you're welcome here whenever you want. You've contributed nothing but good conversation to the streams. So, like I said, you are welcome here, my friend. You are welcome. Yeah. So, like, again, for me, I'm typically pretty low key. I'm pretty, go with the flow kind of a guy. My go with the flow has kind of run out with the situation. My kind of it is what it is has run out with the situation. My kind of like, oh, I trust that the 49ers will make the correct decision, that's kind of gone out the door as well. I'm just in a boat where it's like I don't feel like any good decisions have been executed throughout the entirety of this Brandon Aiyuk situation, which is why it's August 26th and we are still talking about what is going to happen with Brandon Aiyuk. Um, so there's nothing new to add to the situation other than they got to figure this out. They really got to figure this out. Um, and then now this is popped up as well. Trent Williams, it's being reported today that there is some particular, you know, concerns that Trent could miss time. And this could play out into the season. Both Fowler and Schefter have basically said there's no movement on this deal, and that it could play into the season. And I look at it like this. I look at it like this. Trent Williams has been in the 49ers building since 2000. He's gone through a contract negotiation. If you guys aren't familiar, like Trent Williams is a alpha leader in a locker room full of leaders. You know, you look at Kittle, you look at Debo, you know, might be a quiet leader, but you look at Bosa, you look at Fred Warner, you know, Talanoa Funga, Charvarius Ward. You look at all these guys, and Trent is the alpha. He is the alpha of them all. Have you guys ever seen what's it called? How to Train Your Dragon? Have you seen that movie? I think it's the second one, How to Train Your Dragon. And they have the Night Fury, which is like the black sleek, you know, he's like the alpha kind of the normal dragons, but then they come across like the alpha, the huge son of a gun alpha, right? And then all of the other dragons, like, they then are like, okay, this is the true alpha, right? That's what Trent is to this locker room. Like, yes, you have a lot of leaders on this roster. You have plenty of leaders, but Trent is the alpha of the leaders. He is the guy. He's this guy, right? Like you got Toothless right here. Toothless, insert with Debo, insert with Kittle, insert with whoever. I mean, Kittle might be more on an alpha level with Trent. This is Trent. You see this guy? You see this son of a gun? That's Trent. Trent is the alpha of this locker room. And the alpha said, I'm not going to show up. The alpha said, I know I've seen how you negotiated with Debo, with Bosa, with Aiyuk, with Kittle, with Defoe, or maybe not Defoe, but I've seen and heard the stories of how y'all negotiate. I'm not showing up. That's the way that I'm like looking at this. It's like Trent is, and he takes his leadership role very, very seriously. And I'm just sitting back looking like, man, him not showing up feels like it speaks louder, even though we don't talk about it nearly as much as we should talk about it. I look at Trent holding out as being like, this is a dude who's literally the king of the locker room. And he's saying, nah, I'm not going to show up. I'm good. Get at me when you got a contract for me. I'm not even going to show up. I'm not going to play the song and dance of a hold in and do this and do that. He said, nope, I've seen this game before. I've seen this movie. I'm going to go do me, and you guys can call me when you're ready to go. So this whole thing, it's just like, again, on the flip side, like, let's take a stance from the 49ers perspective. Yes, the 49ers are in a challenging spot because they have to budget for Brock. They've got a budget for Lenore. They've got a budget for Ward. They've got a budget for a lot of other guys too. And so they're handcuffed because they have the problem of having too many good players. And when you have too many good players, you got to pay those players. And then you have to be creative with how you pay, with how you create cap space. You have to look multiple years down the road. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the 49ers don't have challenges that they're up against with paying Aiyuk and paying Trent, paying Christian McCaffrey, paying Jawan Jennings. I get it. I understand. My only thing is we do know that the 49ers have a track record of dragging these things out. And I feel that dragging this out has cost them money and it's cost them future players. And I think that's where this becomes challenging is, are we going to compound and lose more good players? Are we going to take this situation that, we probably waited a little bit too long on to pay, and now be just the simple fact of paying now versus after or before the draft, or hey, maybe after the season, or hey, maybe in season, that just because of that decision to wait has cost you multiple players, and it will cost you against the cap. So how do you handle that now? I think that's kind of the tough reality um, that the 49ers are up against. It's like, man, okay, we know we need BA, but it's like, if we pay BA his ask, there's a chance that we're going to lose out on other guys. We already knew that to begin with, but waiting, I think, has made that even a larger issue. So I don't know. I'm tired of talking about it, though. What if they trade Trent for a king's ransom? 36-year-old injuries. Bill Walsh thought process says you might pull the trigger. I think the 49ers have probably approached that. I'm sure kind of the way that I'm looking at how the 49ers operate in these scenarios is they go out and they get that information. Would you guys trade for this guy if we made him available? If so, where do you kind of value him at? I think those conversations happen. I think they happened with Nick Bosa. I was really surprised about Nick Bosa's response to, like, hey, did you ever worry about getting traded? And he was like, yeah, I really did worry about getting traded. And I was like, oh, I thought out of all the guys on this roster to not get traded, it was him. And he said that he was worried about potentially getting traded during his negotiation. So I think a part of the process for the 49ers is to, while they're obtaining the value of said player, they also go and seek how other teams value said player. And that's where the trade conversations come along. So could they potentially be doing this with Trent? They could. Yeah, they absolutely could. Could they get a lot for him in return? I would assume, but that would be a whoo, Ooh, that would be a gut punch. It'd be a gut punch. Again, if you traded, I get the Bill Walsh logic, but you're trading that guy. You're trading the alpha alpha. That's a scary road to go down. Scary road to go down. I think they did something similar with trading DeForest Buckner. I think Buckner at the time was the alpha alpha. He was the leader of the locker room. I remember hearing stories about how Joe Staley said he passed off, the leadership role to Defoe, and Defoe was kind of the head man in charge, and they traded the alpha alpha. And I just feel like they probably learned a lot from that situation. But again, you can't trade the alpha alpha. That feels dangerous. It feels dangerous. And there is a good chance that, maybe you don't get a big haul because he is 36. You have to pay him. And those things combined might not transpire in the form of getting a quality return on that trade. I can't believe it's August 26th and we're still talking about this. I think that's one of the things that's just kind of got me. Like a bit irritated is where it's August 26th and we appear to be in no man's land with both of these situations. So you had Peter Schreger, who's very connected to the 49ers, toss out a possibility of, well, shouldn't the Washington Commanders and Brandon Aiyuk be talking, blah, 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 only a 2 and a 3. And then you have Matt Mayoko quote tweet and be like, yeah, the asking price is only a 2 and 3 for Brandon Aiyuk. And even he said Peter Schrager doesn't throw things against the wall. Matt Mayoko is using our own logic that we use against Matt Mayoko against Peter Schrager. It's just like, oh my. I was like, this is really a wild situation. It's really a wild situation. For sure. Might be the worst off season. Yeah, it's up there. I think it's up there since my time. So I started doing this in 2017. 2018, 2019, 2020 sucked, but 2020 sucked for everyone. The Deebo Samuel stuff also sucked. That was stressful. But I think you compound this particular one off a Super Bowl loss. It does feel. No, I think that's true. No, the offseason when everyone got arrested and retired. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're. Yeah, no, I think this is. I think this is accurate. I think that's. We're like on the second worst offseason in recent history. Yeah, the mass exodus, that was painful. Mass exodus, mass arrests, players getting kicked off the team. Yeah, that was pretty brutal. Anyways, hopefully you guys know I don't like talking about negative stuff. Like I don't like being negative. I don't like being pessimistic. It's not how I choose to be, but the circumstances of this situation make it very difficult to remain positive and optimistic. That's where we're at. Is there aren't many options left with this situation. So Woosah. Woosah. Hopefully something gets figured out soon. Um, but honestly, how long have we been saying that? So I've honestly stopped. There was like a 2-week period there where I was like chained to my desk expecting anything, expecting something to pop. I don't even care anymore. I'm like, whatever. If it pops while I'm out doing something, whatever. I don't even care anymore. Um, don't even care anymore. Joey says, and we can literally expect it to be like this every offseason. Well, just wait. Just wait until we have to pay Brock Purdy next year. That's going to be fun. It's going to be really, really fun time. Cap says, you can really see the impact the local content creation around the Niners is impacting the national media. You and others, Brad, are really paving the way for future sports coverage. Well, I do appreciate that aspect of it. Um, I have held very closely that what not only me, but other creators are doing in the 49ers space is absolutely going to be the future of how sports is covered, not only locally, but on a national basis. Um, so that's why I got into I've had this vision since I've started. I saw the vision, and that's pretty much what I've been continuing to work towards. Um, but yeah, the uh, we aren't small fries anymore. The national guys know who we are. Um, they, obviously, all the national guys had to figure out who Brandon Ayuk was talking to when he commented on my Instagram post. um, so yeah, I mean, from our situation, yes, that's one way to look at it. Uh, I do believe that our community of creators is changing. We're changing in real time, and not even just like local creators, but even the beat reporters. Like, you now have beat reporters like Lombardi, guys who are credentialed like Krug and Grant. Like, the fact that we have this melting pot of individual content creators and credentialed media who are amplifying the the coverage. It's pretty special. We're doing some special things here, and again, I'm not even taking credit for that. It's everyone. Everyone is playing a role in it. Everyone's playing a piece in it, and I've obviously seen the vision. I know the vision, and I see what's happening, behind the scenes as well. And yeah, I see it. Like, whoa, you can sleep on us, right? Like, you can. That's fine. But eventually, they will have to see us one way or the other. But yeah, it's been fun. We are at the, what do they call it? Like the epicenter of the evolution of digital content. Um, I believe that uh, in its fullest extent. So I appreciate you, Cap, highlighting that. Um, he said, since the McDonald's Wi-Fi days. Yep, since the glory days. Since the days of rocking with like 10 people in the chat. Always a good time. All right, so this is the way that I'm looking at it. um, I think that we will get a couple more roster moves today. I would imagine we'll get a couple more players that have been released. And so I'll be posting those updates to the channel. So make sure you guys got your post notifications on, all that good stuff. I'm going to have some offerings, more offerings coming from you guys from my sponsors. I'm going to do a little bit better job of presenting that to you. But get your cookies in the meantime. And I might come back and do a live. We'll see. We'll see. Depends on some of the news that pops. But appreciate everyone tapping in. I'm out of here for now. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to